This is the story of one man's sacrifice across three of America's most pivotal wars: World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was a combat infantry commander in all three wars and became a three-time recipient of the Combat Infantryman Badge, his proudest achievement. The award of the CIB from three separate wars is unique, and only 325 Americans have earned this honor. Most were wounded, all were decorated, and today their valiant deeds are commemorated at the National Infantry Museum. He earned his first CIB in World War II while serving as the executive officer and then commanding officer of the 2nd Battalion, 276th Regiment of the 70th Infantry Task Force. He earned his second CIB in the Korean War, where he was the executive officer and then regimental commander of the 17th Infantry Regiment of the 7th Infantry Division. He earned his third CIB in Vietnam, serving as a senior advisor and then deputy commanding officer of the 101st Brigade.
My father was a career combat soldier who had the opportunity to ride to the sound of the guns. In World War II, my father, a mere 3.5 years after receiving his ROTC commission, was assigned to the 2nd Battalion of the 276th Infantry Regiment of the 70th Infantry Division, deployed to southern France, and found itself in combat almost immediately. The 70th, 42nd, and 63rd Divisions had been ordered to deploy to the European theater before they had received their combined arms training, certifying them for official deployment. The divisions did not have their supporting elements. The idea was they would complete their training once they arrived overseas. They arrived in France on 16 December, the very day that the Battle of the Bulge kicked off. On New Year's Eve, Hitler launched his last desperate assault trying to cut off southern France, the Alsace offensive called Operation Nordwind. The Germans had breached the American defenses using 8 German divisions, including SS mountain troops, supported by strong armor and artillery. The untrained 70th were hurled into the line along the Rhine River near Bichweiler. Ted's battalion was fighting their way north when they were met by overwhelming German defensive positions and took many casualties. The task force was attached to the 45th Infantry Division, commanded by General Fredericks. He came down to the brigade headquarters and relieved the battalion commander and put Major Mataxis in charge of the battalion, telling him that by morning, if he had not taken Hill 414, he would return and relieve him. The battalion companies were so badly mauled, having lost a couple of company commanders killed, Ted was forced to create 2 maneuver elements rather than using the undermanned mauled companies. Ted took charge of one element and the battalion operations officer took the other. They attacked that night. That evening, Major Mataxis single-handedly took out a MG-42 machine gun position occupied by the 6th SS Germans, killing 3 and capturing 3, earning the Silver Star.
Almost 3 times as fast as our own machine guns.
Having taken the hill, his battalion was cut off from the Allies for 3 days, during which time they inflicted heavy casualties on the Germans who had not realized that they had taken the hill back. The battalion continued their push north in February, liberating the towns of Forbach and Oding, a moment that remained a source of immense pride for his battalion and himself. The following paragraph describes the fighting that took place, and I quote, "Under heavy fire, the American soldiers attacked, piercing the enemy's defenses, and broke into the city, where they undertook house-to-house fighting, often involving hand-to-hand combat with bayonets. The multi-story buildings presented very difficult obstacles that needed to be overcome using small arms, hand grenades, and hand-to-hand combat. Each house was like a massive bunker with a small basement window that opened up on the street level where the Germans were strategically positioned. These basement windows not only created devastating fire down the streets, but also presented a very small target to be engaged by the Americans." End of quote. The battalion lost 106 men killed during that liberation.
The fighting is heavy as American troops push forward against stubborn opposition.
Every cellar may be a foxhole for German rearguards. Each has to be cleared like this one.
The excitement was rising, and after so many years of Nazi oppression, the Allies received the warmest of welcomes from those they set free.
Years later, the town of Oding named their town square after the 2nd Battalion of the 276th Regiment and a street after Ted. In fact, last month we attended the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Oding on 23 February 2025. A gesture that reflects the profound respect and gratitude of the people of Oding 80 years after the actual liberation. Task Force Heron was in combat only 86 days and suffered 835 killed in action and 2,713 wounded in action. As a child of immigrant parents, my dad learned early in life that our freedoms in America provide the opportunities for all immigrants that are willing to work hard to accomplish their dreams. Each generation of Americans bear the responsibility of safeguarding our freedoms and ensuring the legacy for the future. Ted devoted his lifetime to defending our country and our way of life. At the end of World War II, when his battalion was deactivated in Berlin, he was put in charge of a prisoner of war camp for 300 German generals who recorded their accounts of their operations against the Soviet Union.
Der Duce ist frei. Männer des SD und der Waffen-SS sowie Fallschirmjäger haben den Auftrag des Führers erfüllt.
When en route to the Indian Staff College in 1950, he stopped by Singapore, where the British instructed him on their ongoing counter-guerrilla efforts in Malay. At the Indian Staff College, he studied the guerrilla aspects of the British-Afghan wars in detail and traveled all the way up to the Soviet border. After he graduated from the Indian Staff College, he spent the next year as a UN observer in the guerrilla-plagued Kashmir. On his way to the Korean War, he took personal leave to visit French Indochina to observe France's war with the Viet Minh.
By 1953, Ho Chi Minh's communist guerrillas have fought the French army for 7 years in Vietnam. The French are struggling to pin down and destroy the elusive Viet Minh revolutionaries.
Mataxis put his studies of guerrilla warfare to practical use in Vietnam. From 1964 through 1966, he served as a senior advisor to the South Vietnamese II Corps Commanding General, conducting the Vietnamese defense against the lesser-known but more dangerous Tet Offensive of 1965. When the regular U.S. troops entered South Vietnam, he extended to serve as the deputy commander with the 1st Brigade of the 101st Division, which fought the Viet Cong guerrillas and the regular North Vietnam forces.
There are still a lot of people that believe that this is simply a war between the Vietnamese people. It's their war, let's let them handle it.
Let them handle it, Mr. Beckworth. Captured weaponry from Red China, Chi-Com K-50, Chinese communists, SKS Soviet-made carbine, Russian communists, ammunition, Czechoslovakian-made, Czech communists. No, sir, Mr. Beckworth. It doesn't take a lead weight to fall on me or a hit from one of those weapons to recognize that what's involved here is communist domination of the world.
Iran today, a country brimming with energy, exploding with construction and development, a dynamic state with a thriving capital.
In 1968 through 1970, he was assigned as an advisor to the Military Advisor Group in Tehran, Iran, where he advised the Iranians on their covert plans to assist the Kurdish guerrillas in eastern Iraq.
By the end of the First World War, Kurds wanted their own country. But when Britain, France, and America drew the new map of the Middle East, the Kurdish nation found itself in 4 countries: Iran, Turkey, Syria, Iraq. Iraq begins exporting oil in 1931. At the end of the Second World War, the Kurds, still oppressed, revolt.
He returned to South Vietnam in 1970, where he served as Deputy Commander and Acting Commander of the 23rd Infantry Division. General Mataxis was reassigned to Cambodia with 1 day's notice in 1971. He became the chief of the Joint Military Equipment Delivery Team in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, with the mission of building the Cambodian military force of 200,000 people. Without the buildup of the Cambodian forces, the NVA could have moved divisions into 4 Corps and Saigon. General Mataxis retired in 1972 after 32 years of uniformed service from Cambodia. After retirement from the military, General Mataxis continued his study of guerrilla warfare, and he served the Singapore Minister of Defense from 1972 to 1975 as a consultant building up their military since they were a new island state.
These men are Afghan Muslims who have taken up arms against the communist regime in Afghanistan. They are called Mujahedin. Afghanistan is strategically important to Russia in relation to the Middle East and the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. The people were not opposed to Russian interest in Afghanistan until the Russians actively backed the new regime with extensive economic and military aid. The Russians have recently moved combat troops into Afghanistan to strengthen the depleted army at strategic bases and airfields around Kabul. The Russians must be aware that in the face of this Islamic tide, their involvement in Afghanistan could easily backfire.
From 1983 to 1990, he advised the Mujahedin rebel fighters in his capacity as field director for a Committee for Free Afghanistan, and was also helpful in raising support for the anti-communist resistance to the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia.
Our main defenses are that we believe in Allah.
This belief has left the Mujahedin undaunted by the news of the movement into Afghanistan of extra Russian brigades. Their aim is to slowly gain ground and eat away at the morale of the besieged troops until they are finally forced to surrender.
General Mataxis liked to remind everyone, and this is a direct quote, that the guerrillas only need to survive and endure over the years or decades of the conflict to eventually prevail because of higher morale and greater obstinance, stronger national will, and the determination to survive. End of quote.
By 1986, the CIA was supplying the rebels with the Stinger missile, and the new missile proved deadly to the Soviet aircrews. One resistance commander remarked, "There are only 2 things we Afghans need, the Quran and more Stingers." By 1987, flare dispensers had been added to most Soviet helicopters. Despite this, in 1987 alone, more than 200 Soviet aircraft fell prey to the Mujahedin's new weapon.
This is not just another war story. It chronicles the life of a soldier and his family through 3 hot wars and the entirety of the Cold War, from its beginnings in 1946 to the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. With an introduction by retired General H.R. McMaster and endorsements from some of the most respected leaders in the Army, this book has earned recognition from those who know the weight of service.
Within the pages of this book is a description of the extraordinary odyssey of a man and his quest to master the Spartan mother's ancient command to return with your shield, or on it, his family's commitment and sacrifice during the course of that journey, and the extraordinary multi-generational legacy of service to nation by his family that he fostered through examples of word and deed. Ride to the Sound of the Guns is so much more than another war story. It chronicles the life of a soldier, of an Army family, and the history of this nation through wars and peace, from World War II to the global war on terror. And Brigadier General Ted Mataxis was involved in every event. Personally, I have never seen or heard of an officer from any service that was on the ground in more places in war and peace, and involved in more important actions. The prominent military and civilian leaders that he had interactions with reads like a list of great leaders of America, many who served under his command and were mentored by General Mataxis. I first met General Mataxis while serving with his son Ted in the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, following our service in Vietnam. When we again crossed paths in Cambodia in 1975, these were the final days of the Khmer Republic in Phnom Penh, and the city was under intense rocket and artillery fire. We met again on the northwest frontier of Pakistan, where as a battalion commander and later group commander of the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, our soldiers provided support and training to the Mujahedin.
We've secured a publisher for this book, and it will be released the fall of 2025. This book is not just for military enthusiasts. It's for anyone interested in sacrifice, patriotism, and American history. It's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the meaning of lifelong sacrifice, not only on behalf of the soldier, but on behalf of his family. Visit legacyofduty.com to learn more about this book.